After the first orders to close businesses, schools, and government offices to the public, the COVID ruse is still being played out on the world. As that story wears thin, people are waking up to the fact that corporations are telling us to wear masks in public and to stay 2 meters apart from each other, despite the evidence that this disease everyone was so afraid of has gone away. As emotionally charged stories unfold and play on people's human nature, compassion, and empathy, we are held captive by a story of the unjust death of Black people at the hands of people with power. Equally compelling is a story of massive protests all over the world to oppose this injustice. And just as that story is swallowed whole by an unsuspecting public, another story is layered on top, one of destruction, of burning and looting in response to the injustice.
Now they circling. See, then look. I want you to know this is not.
Don't police people's way of
Let me tell you this.
themselves.
This is not a Black woman who's put in Black Lives Matter. I just want you to know that right, but y'all doing that for us, and we ain't asked you to do that. Listen, don't spray stuff on here when they gonna blame Black people for this, and Black people didn't do it. There's a Black person, but if we wanted you to do it, we would have asked. They not gonna show y'all faces when they see that on their building. They gonna blame that on us. Y'all are part of the problem. News come on, they gonna say we did that. We didn't do that. Stuff like this ain't right. Stuff like this ain't right. That's what the problem is. We out here standing together peacefully, protesting without any problems. You got people of all races spraying on buildings talking about Black Lives Matter. That ain't even us. You got police officers coming to a peaceful protest spraying gas on us. We ain't even did nothing. Don't let the media fool you. When they see the vandalism on these places, know that it wasn't us. And when you see stuff like that, you're supposed to stand up and say something. Don't spray on these people's buildings. That's not our message. That's not helping nothing. And then putting it on us, and then want to argue with us and say somebody Black asked you to spray. We don't need nobody to do nothing for us. That's why we out here doing it ourselves.
Although certain groups are blamed for the destruction, the punishment is being leveled against all of us. And the people who told the lies also made up narratives of a virus and pandemic, death and social injustice, protest in the streets, and destruction of businesses and buildings. Those people manufacture chaos and are watching all of this. They make sure that we believe the narratives to justify the further eradication of our human and civil rights. As with all false narratives placed before us to believe, a set of signs and symbols are also presented to help sell the story and get us to go along with the fiction and our own incarceration. One of the ways to do this is to co-opt your natural tendency for empathy and exploit it for agendas that ultimately end up putting into place the reverse of what is being demanded.
The masks that keep us quiet and away from others haven't been enough to keep people from asking questions and complaining about those trying to muzzle us, to push us further into accepting our imprisonment. We're presented with the image of a man held down with a knee on his neck. This image is easily transmutable from a knee to a boot. But both suggest that we are the man, held down, and we should give up and fall into a sense of hopelessness. If that wasn't enough, the imagery of fire and burning of buildings and the looting of businesses assaulted our newsfeed. What this assault is telling us is that what we had before is now gone. We've been looted of our lives, and the fire represents the purifying of our world. It prepares us for the sowing of new models that are inevitable, but most of us are not prepared for. What happens when people in positions of power, like Nancy Pelosi, take a knee? They pantomime their outward emptiness. They show their insincerity in the public genuflecting. They become easy targets of ridicule and shame. Why are some of these heads of state wearing masks? Is this to signal to the world their silence on the shift from a sovereign nation into one that pays allegiance to an unseen, certainly unelected power? The bumbling manner in which these heads of state all had difficulty holding their positions shows the silliness of the ceremony and leaves them wide open for ridicule. They are not really the priests and holy appointees over our lives like they think they are. And the gesture itself, the bended knee, is a gesture that has been emblazoned in our mind as an act of murder, as we witness the very gesture choke the life out of an unarmed man.
The kneeling in general is a disturbing outward sign of a deep, irreconcilable void and emptiness, filled with manifestations of narcissism. The kneeling of the masses, whether they are ball players or citizens acting in solidarity to the plight of a marginalized, targeted community, shows a deep disconnect with what the act of kneeling truly represents. It represents servitude, subservience, and slavery. Slaves had to kneel before their masters as they were being sold as human capital. When ball players kneel, they are kneeling to their masters, who pay them millions of dollars per year, promising their bodies and minds in service to the league. When politicians kneel, they are outwardly displaying their servitude and willingness to transition into corporate fascism. And people with good hearts who don't understand what kneeling is show the profound void in them, as their good intentions are exploited for dark purposes. The kneeling is a cry for religion, a cry for a savior, a cry for a leader, and a demeaning act of weakness that forces their bodies to genuflect and offer themselves up as sacrifices to a fabricated cause. Kneeling is not an act of brotherhood or solidarity. It is a relinquishment of those things, the handing off of them to the masters of the house. When a person is positioned before God or an image of God or before the Queen, they must position their body in subservience with bowed head and bended knee. It's during these reverent acts of allegiance that they may be knighted or even apostatized. These heads of state are also wearing the kente cloth, which is not only an embarrassing and inappropriate act of cultural appropriation, but it also has echoes of priesthood. Only Catholic priests, when performing sacred ceremonies, have the right to wear the stole, or it represents the talit, the Jewish shawl. By wearing this particular article of clothing while kneeling with bowed head, shows their reverent gratitude to an unseen power for being ordained as the gatekeepers or the priests to the Great Reset.
All our legacy systems are now going away. The old way of doing things are now outmoded by the people in charge, the ruling class. The way and where we work, how we shop for food, and things in our lives, how we live, where we live, how we learn, communicate, associate, and entertain are now going away. We are experiencing the Great Reset. Although it may seem like it, this is not the end of the world, but it is the end of life as you've always known it. This isn't doomsday talk. This is the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
At the turn of the 19th century, artisans and craftspeople produced everyday products by hand. Nothing was mass-produced, and entrepreneurs were primarily the producers of the products, or the masters of their craft, employing a few laborers in the shop. The products were built under the supervision and approval of the master craftsmen.
The first Industrial Revolution was a radical disruption to that previous means of production by mechanizing the artisans and craftspeople into attendants to a machine under the supervision of the factory owner. The machine in turn created the products while the people maintained the flow of the production line. The second Industrial Revolution was the electrification of the world. People could be even more productive because work time was extended into the night, and factories could work around the clock with workers producing in shifts. People who worked in offices could work longer hours because workspaces could be lit when the sun went down, and more consumer products changed the way household work could be done, which created a market for these products and took away jobs from domestic help in middle-class homes and put the unpaid labor on the shoulders of the woman of the house. Computers led the third Industrial Revolution by speeding up everything from workflow to communications. What promised to be a paperless society turned into one that produced endless printed reports from cheap printers using endless reams of paper. People worked even longer hours, while waste and economic disparity grew despite the promise of a better, more democratic world with more leisure and less waste. The better world did come about, but only for those on the right side of the digital divide. It got better yet for the very wealthy, who became even more wealthy as they were able to siphon more and more wealth to the top via the efficiency and speed of computers brought to the world of finance, production, communication, transportation, education, and life in general. The ruling class had found a way to make more money from just creating more money, digitally, thus truly becoming what they labeled themselves as, wealth creators.
The fourth Industrial Revolution, like its predecessors, will disrupt society, not only how you work, but how you live. In all the previous industrial revolutions, the means of making money were the factories and machines that made products, the capital, in other words, and humans helped those machines do that. We will continue that role in the fourth Industrial Revolution, but this time, a lot of that labor will be for free. Not only that, we've been doing it for at least 15 years and didn't know it because it was disguised as social media, online shopping, and online search. People throughout the world have become teachers to the machines, providing hours of unpaid labor to Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and Amazon. The mechanization of the fourth Industrial Revolution, however, has not been to produce products. That part is a given and will continue with or without people involved. The real revolution here is what is mechanized. And what will that be? It will be the mechanization of our essence of who we are, our ability to recognize and understand each other, our ability to translate ideas and language, our ability to negotiate, and most importantly, our ability to trust. In the past 15 years, computing power, storage capacity, and speed have increased greatly to the point that a pocket-sized storage device can hold 2 or more terabytes of data, more than the contents of the Library of Congress in one little box. Along with the increase in storage and speed has come what's been called deep neural net or deep learning, in which software that can continuously teach itself which algorithms are best at predicting whatever it wants to predict. This deep learning is part of what is known as artificial intelligence or AI. But the gooey chocolate strawberry syrup on top is the free human labor input into these networks via social media and internet search. There's a reason that Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and all the Google products are available to us for free. It's because we are giving these systems what they need to achieve the goal of speeding up the process of producing to selling.
Let's stop for a minute and reflect on what's been taking place. I promise it will explain a little bit more about what we've been talking about and what's going on. In the past 3 months, have you wondered about all the inconsistencies that go along with the COVID-19 rules and regulations? What about the social distancing practiced in one place, but not in others? Why are we wearing masks when doctors tell us that masks don't help prevent disease, but are actually harmful? The reason is that new systems are being put into place, systems that use recognition software, and they're being used in places where we shop, move around, and recreate. You might have noticed that there are places where there are multiple restrictions on the number of people allowed, or the need for face masks and keeping apart from each other. In the last few months, we have entered into a new phase of teaching and assisting deep learning systems. Deep learning has been combined with recognition software and cameras, and in the case of the grocery store, the software that keeps track of what you buy, when and how often you buy it. All of this gets put into predictive modeling and big data software to create a profile of you, what you look like, not just your face, but your entire body, how you move, where you go, and what you buy. The restrictions on our movement, the masks, and the social distancing allows the software to isolate our individual faces, bodies, and behavior to learn, identify, and store this information.
Let's now return to the idea of speeding up the process of producing to selling. What is the one thing that we all do that comes between the production of goods and the sale of goods? If you say shopping, you're correct. Whether it's for food or clothing or anything else, shopping is a lifestyle for all of us in the 21st century. It was something ingrained into our psyche for generations, since the end of World War II. Now I hear you say, shopping, that's your takeaway? Shopping? Yeah, and I get your consternation at this, but hear me out. Shopping is a good example because it's an everyday activity we can all understand. With recognition software, predictive modeling, big data, and all the things we've shared on social media, artificial intelligence can now do something we can't even do. It can know and predict what we need before we do. The very thing we all love to do and do without thinking. Shopping is the one thing that, when removed from the sequence, will speed up the process between producing something and selling it. And that saves and makes a lot of money for the people who invest in these operations. But you don't save or make money from the information you've provided to them. Why is that? In the very near future, the things you need will be shipped to you before you even order them. The systems in place will predict your individual response and will assume that you will not send the products back and will also assume that you will accept the bill. These systems have used our unpaid labor to inform it enough to sell us things we didn't even know we needed before we needed them. As a result, we have become unwitting participants in a consumer-based economy on steroids.
All of those purchases and predictions will be recorded in a digital ledger system called blockchain. You've probably heard of blockchain in regard to cryptocurrency, but because it's a system that keeps track of transactions of all kinds, it can also be applied to what is purchased, by whom, where, when, how, why, and when to send it to you again, or for the first time. And you end up spending money automatically without going anywhere or doing anything, which could be convenient, but is it? What if you don't have the money in your account to pay for it? Then what? Now imagine that this ledger keeps track of everyone in the world, and their shopping habits are only part of the accounting. Where they go, who they meet, how long they're meeting with whom, how they get there, etc. Are you recognizing a pattern? You should. You see, currently, people are being hired as contact tracers to check on where you've been and who you've been around. They're only filling the gap until the systems needed will be put into place. In the meantime, they're collecting the data about you and your health to put into the ledger.
Let's now introduce one more layer. We've been hearing about the Internet of Things for almost 20 years. We've been told that smart devices connected to the Internet will make our lives more convenient and easier. A smart refrigerator, for instance, will know when your milk is bad or when you need more mustard. But smart devices in your house will report information into your profile that's kept on the ledger. You see where this is going? This all sounds convenient until you realize that your refrigerator is keeping track of what you put in it. Do you have healthy food or junk food? Are you putting a lot of alcoholic beverages in there? Or do you have that milk that will need to be replaced soon? In other words, are you a healthy citizen? Smart light bulbs will keep track of how long they're on and how much energy is used. So what, right? Well, why was your light on till 3 a.m.? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you feeling well? All of this information will go into the blockchain ledger and will be compared to all the other information about you and will be used to inform your profile.
Now I know this may be hard to understand, but why do you think all those small businesses closed during the COVID pandemic? Why have buildings and stores been looted and burned in cities all over the country? It's not because of a virus, and it certainly isn't because yet another person of color was killed by the police. I'm sorry to say that part of the answer is about what we just talked about. It's about getting rid of legacy systems. If you knock out businesses that can't afford to use the systems being put into place, this not only means more profit for corporations that can afford these systems, but it also means these systems will be the only system. There will not be room for alternatives. Small businesses are unpredictable and messy when it comes to streamlining the supply chain. Corporations, on the other hand, are designed to keep those systems running smoothly. And those images of big box stores like Target being looted or burned, well, why will we need stores when AI can predict what and when you're going to buy and then send it to you? Why are we seeing images of police stations being abandoned and burned? And why are we seeing video of police behaving in brutal ways? Could it be another legacy system that will be replaced? Is this a giant PR campaign to manipulate you, to demand police reform? What comes from that? We think something much worse.
3 police stations in the Wellington district are trialling touchscreen self-service units called Police Connect. The new service, powered by 10.5, provides another way for members of the public to find information, report an incident, or speak with someone from police, even if a station is busy or closed. We're also exploring whether or not a digital person could provide policing services and advice with our electronic lifelike assistant, or Ella.
I'm Ella. It's lovely to see you.
Ella's capabilities are basic at this stage, as she's a proof of concept. But if the animated AI technology makes sense in a policing context, she could have a bigger role to play as we continue to modernise our services. Ella and Police Connect are both prototypes and are a while away from being rolled out nationwide. But the opportunities these and other digital technologies present to create new, and improved ways to access and receive policing services is vast and truly exciting.
The fourth industrial revolution is not just about getting rid of shopping, but it looks like that's one of the first things that will change in our society. Other aspects of our lives, like working, educating our children, and where we live, will also change in equally radical ways. We will explore those in coming videos in this series. It's been a strange past few months, and some people still believe that a virus is out there lurking, ready to kill everyone in its wake. And still more people believe that a huge wave of social justice is taking place. But what's really happening is much larger, and we are all allowing it to go on. We expect to see more events like the protests and the riots and the identity themes changing and shaped out as necessary. Along with that, we expect other crises like COVID coming at us in the next 6 to 12 months. What is being put into place while we pay attention to this other stuff, and while we've been staying inside during curfews and lockdowns and limitations of our movement, will be the next chapter in humanity. So the question is, based on what we are telling you, are you all right with that?
Just a threat will stop them talking. Target them like dead men walking. Emitting light in the night like fireflies. Pulled in like moths to the candlelight. You can win money, big cash prizes. We're all paid out but don't realise it. You can't get enough, we can't prescribe it. You're not getting off, we don't like it. Your name in the dust, sit and watch it blow. Where it flies, you'll never know. Where it goes, how long it lasts. Memories just fade to past. Our car crash lights may lead us to discover things we never knew. Our beliefs are only points of view. Nothing lasts forever. Something I read, moving nothing but the thoughts in our head. Blessed be the people we met, those that have left, never forget. When it's my time to fly, I will look down from up on high, like the lights up in the sky. They will change but never die.